Hello, everybody. Mind the wild. I'm going to check in with some plant spirits, and I'm also going to talk a little about plant spirits in general and working with them. And to repeat some of these things I probably pointed out before. Plants generally work and different plant medicines, spirits, drugs, work in a way as frequency anchors seen from this vibrational perspective. So in that sense, this is why they're often so useful in social settings. It's because everybody tune in to that specific frequency on the drug of the drug when they ingest it, and there's of course also the attention to the ritual, the social setting, which can be sharing a bottle of wine. It can also, be sharing the mode of ingestion from from sharing needles. Yeah, I wouldn't know about that, but also to passing the peace pipe, or as yerba mate is ritually drunk, where you pass. The gourd and the bombilla, right? So it becomes a way where everybody's attention is also focused on that main activity, and then they actually neurochemically align with that vibration that is within the plant or the drug. And that seems to be a main component of cultures everywhere on the planet, that they have certain ritualized modes of ingesting certain drugs that are deeply incorporated into the culture and seen as natural. And that's something as the coffee break, for instance, in modern society, and of course, smoking breaks earlier. It seems like nicotine is also one of these drugs that keep cropping up globally. And that people find new and odd ways to ingest one way or another, because it seems to also do something for them. Partially, it is of course highly addictive, um, but I think it also probably speaks to that high wound, stimulated culture, where nicotine can also very much have an appeal. It's also a fairly centering drug in the sense of self. It seems to compose your sense of self, bring forward a type of mental focus, and also amplify memory, for instance. It's been shown to do. So in that way, in a very fragmented time, as we are definitely living through, this also seems to be something that gives an individual some sense of composure. And of course, that the ritual of smoking through the day can be a kind of anchor also for the personal life for a lot of people. So it's interesting how they work in that sense. A lot of these drugs that are more everyday, rather than wild, transformative, shamanic drugs, then like these everyday small assistants that we seem to have to lift our spirits and navigate our lives. That is interesting. I feel because most people have these, and it's my impression that those who haven't have sort of often ritualized the fact that they haven't. So they have a kind of austere practice, and they may, then have meditation or certain exercise regimens, or also have a very highly regulated diet that's kind of regulated around only eating healthy, or things that are also like slightly neurotic rituals that keep the composure of the personality of the life that's playing out, which is how drugs serve us when they serve us at least these everyday things. And of course, we probably all know that there are ways where imbalances can occur with this. And I assume if you're shooting heroin or something, that's probably fairly early on that you know, so that's not doing your system a lot of good. But of course, with other let's say, more benign drugs, it can take a long time to kind of appear and manifest that, oh, there seems to be some negative effects that I'm experiencing from this. Um, so with that segue, for instance, I've with coffee had for a long time that, oh, I was actually kind of fond of drinking coffee. I think it's beautiful. It tastes good. It has a lot of wonderful qualities. But I was also abusing it and having the effects that you get from drinking too much coffee. Shaking, sweating, nausea, all those things where you kind of don't feel very good. And so I switched to drinking yerba mate, which is interesting, of course, because that's also a caffeine-containing plant. If you don't know it, like it's from southern South America, and it's fairly popular in some countries, Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay. Um, and comes in certain varieties where it's also smoked. But you can also get like these new varieties where it's organic and it's almost like drinking spinach with water on it. So I found like partially I very much enjoy the ritual of the long drink where you keep adding water and kind of empty out the essence of the herb, drain it out. I also like the straw for the oral fixation using these bombillas. But it's interesting to keep communing with caffeine, but doing it in another format. And caffeine is, of course, by far the most popular of drugs on the planet. And at any given time, more than half of the world's population is under the influence of caffeine from some source or another. Um, so it's interesting how these nuances in it also shape us. Coffee, of course, is partially a highland plant, so it sort of picks up these energies from the layers of the atmosphere where there's a lower concentration of oxygen, and it might have more of this slightly high wound sense to it, wavy, peaky sense of intensity where it can kind of get manic. But to counteract that, it then also has it's roasted, of course. So that process seems to add also some interesting fiery energies, and of course bring out like a lot of earthy nuances. And so like coffee, when it's ground and processed, right, really gets to seem like almost refined earth, and it's also good to add it to your plants and everything. So it has kind of that quality. But for instance, drinking chicory for periods, which is also roasted, you'll notice that actually has some of the same energy in it that coffee has, even though that doesn't contain caffeine. So there are also these like interesting fluctuations of the small delicate energies, which if you're very sensitive to it, become embedded in the plants you're working with. So in the case of Maté, for instance, the smoked ones also seem to pick up some of this fiery energy, and of course drinking some of them that can also almost be like a Texas barbecue, right? Like they can be very flavorful, which can in and of itself give like this weird, slightly stimulating experience. But what I do find is that it seems to be, at least for my constitution at the moment, slightly higher vibrational. It doesn't seem to bring me down or make me tired. That's often the experience I have when I interact with drugs or substances, even sugar or foods that have like a low vibration, is that it makes me feel slightly nauseated and slightly tired. Um, and that's also very much the effect I'll that cigarettes have on me if I smoke those, and that I feel is kind of a monkey I've gotten off my back. But then I, for the past few months, I've been working a lot with Rapé, um, these mapacho based snuffs. Mapacho is also a tobacco plant, and the Nicotina rustica, peasant's tobacco, we call it in Danish, which has a far higher content of nicotine, but also of other alkaloids. And and then they're often mixed by certain shamans, and the different tribes have different traditions of mixing mapacho with the ashes from certain plants, and that gives you these powdered snuffs. And then I've sort of been getting them from private vendors who, import them from the tribes directly and pay them a fair amount of money. And then, if so, this is like a private vendor in Bordeaux who sent me these these very cute little glassy apothecary medieval type vials, which I very much appreciate. And so this also interesting because I've definitely been kind of skating on the level of also abusing it, doing too much of it, where it's definitely told me that, okay, cut it out. We're not gonna do anything good for you for a while. So it seems to have that effect in comparison to cigarettes, where it's very pronounced, but where it'll kind of keep drawing you in, chasing the dragon. This seems to have that very high vibrational aspect of nicotine, where it also becomes a purge, and it is of course an insecticide. Like it seems to serve the function in the nightshade family, where it appears to ward off pests and and in general be a very very strong repellent. So it's interesting how it also seems to very much flush the system, and it has some of the same purging effects that ayahuasca has, but in a degree where it's of course not as strong as like visionary, for better or worse. So it's been very interesting to kind of experience how, um, like, I think these three substances, caffeine and nicotine and cannabis, have sort of want to stay in my life, but also often want me to really deal with how I'm handling them, and whether or not they're serving me, or whether or not I'm using them in ill-advised ways. And that's an ongoing process. And the reason I talk about this is I think it's interesting. I enjoy talking about these matters, but also because I think it might serve others who probably also are strongly affected by this, like classical Western. I think it's a very Christian discourse, like that confessional sense of, oh, what is it that I'm doing that's less than ideal, that I should quit. And and seeing drugs in that perspective can kind of be a very very guilt ridden experience, rather arriving at the fact that it is essentially something that people do, and it's good to have a balanced and aware relationship with a lot of these small plant companions who just sweeten and amplify our lives in a lot of ways. So I'll toast to that with a sip of Maté, and then I think I'll try to first commune with this plant, the Ilex paraguensis, I think is the Latin name, um, and see where that takes us, and then probably if if it isn't too weird of an experience, I'll probably also try to check in with the Rapé. So much love to you out there. Oh, so greetings, dear ones. Yes, I extend my love, appreciation, understanding for the acknowledgement that human beings offer me in coming to my spirit and seeking connection through it. So these are some of the intuitions that may arise when you commune with my spirit. Well, La 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 is the name that I would love to give to my own vibration or translate into words, but I am aware that there are other words that are used to single out my vibration, and so Maté is usually the one that is the most recognized, and indeed I also do enjoy this one. Notice that the Ma is a nourishing vibration. It opens up the breath and it opens you up to life, and the Te is indeed directed. It is a forceful thing that reaches you, and so this is the way that my loving natural energy reaches you. So in sorting out this query of our friend here who has summoned me this day, he was wondering what are the qualitative differences between my vibration and other plants who also contain this molecule you know as caffeine. So to name a few: caffeine, cocoa, cola, guarana, matcha, and tea, betel. These may all be other plants where you can also find this molecule in different configurations. But what is quite remarkable about interacting and communing with my energy is the green chlorophyllic energy that seems to be connected to it. This energy of pure life, of the minuscule factories that transform sunlight into nourishment for the denser environments, that is very pronounced in my energy, and that is why you may sense that this experience of caffeine ingestion allows you a sense of leafy fluttering, a sense that you are expanding outwards, much like the tree, and stretching yourself to allow yourself to take in as much of the rays of life as you possibly can. So there is an energy of growth and of rising upwards that comes along with meeting my spirit, and you will find this chlorophyllic energy to inhabit in other places where the green is abundant. So spinach, we sense, informed, it is dear to this body, this presence, this being translating us. And our vibration can indeed in many ways be likened to spinach. This is a quicker plant. It is more rash in its growth patterns, and it is also more geared towards sustaining the physical structures, providing life to other life forms. But it has much of the same physical textures and qualities. And so if you are looking for a hearty drink of spinach with a quality of caffeine that makes you shoot for the sunlight, then my spirit, la 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 la, is present right there, inviting you to join me in union. Blessings to you, sweet human beings. Farewell. That was the spirit of Maté. Um, and then I'll check in with the spirit of mapacho, and see where that takes us. Yes, someone was just here. I sense a sister plant spirit, someone of a more fluttery nature, someone who is harder to grasp, someone with airs about them. This plant you call Maté, she was just here. And I thank you for allowing my energy to also connect with her in this manner. See, this is a type of marriage between earth and heaven. Of the ground I arise, and from the ground I bring codes of life beyond the skeletal stratagems of humankind. That is, I bring your body back to its immediate state of agitation. And you may find that the areas I stir in the body are much related to the energy centers of the lower part of the torso. You may also sense that many of these symptoms that are called forward of my influence, they relate to the stirring of anger, of force, of will, of self-exertion. The naked scream of naked flesh brought into the world and forced to make its way through it. This is the raw energy of birthing that I contain. And so, what is possibly more grounded than birth itself, than the earth itself constantly birthing and giving life to nourishment, to sustenance, but also to hunger, to instinct, to will. Powerful forces I am able to stir and release within the system. And so you will find the volcanic effect of my system is often to stir your bowels, your innards, your fluids that are contained so often within certain taped up ducts of flow, the way you conduct the phlegm, the bile, the blood of your system through ordered and processed loops. I break that down and I allow for a reordering of the system through this powerful influence. And so you will find that often things seems to want to come out of you when I go in. Tensions that have remained stuck will begin to intensify until they release, as they are not able to bear the weight of their own pressure and must surrender into the open flow of vital life force. And you will find that purgings begin, things flowing out of the orifices, expunging what no longer serves you, clearing up your energy system to open up to the life that is flowing within you and that you have learned to contain. So know that when I am summoned, you have summoned me to release the life force within, and the image transmitted to the mind of our friend here is that of a horse being let out of the stables and being allowed to run wild and free again. Indeed, I am a very, very old spirit, through different iterations of civilizations, through different cycles of arising and again passing. I have been present and allowed people to come in to the flow of life within them. I invite you to commune with me, and I offer you the purity of pure sensation, the promise of the purge of the pent up. With this loving invitation, I depart this day, I, the spirit of Mapacho, I, an ancient plant spirit, I leave you. Thank you for this interaction. Farewell. It is very one of the very remarkable things about like channeling these different spirits is that I could feel that the Mapacho spirit was in many ways more powerful. Like it seemed to have a far wider range and history of interaction with humans than did the Maté spirit. So it seemed more locked in its etheric coordinates, so to speak. And that's something that's just remarkable and mysterious for me in working with this stuff. So I hope you enjoyed that trip through a couple of different installations of the ethers, and I send you much love wherever you are.